All right, let's talk about. I believe that the history. Well, I've got to make this under 34 minutes. The history that we are taught in modern Western societies, I believe it's mostly false, or at the very least, that there's some major thing that we're not being told. Something very huge, some sort of major shift. Hopefully the wind's not interfering with my video. But I believe there is something we are not being told, because, I mean, there's a lot of reasons I believe that, but mainly, the main thing is the modern world that we live in. I'm talking modern Western societies. I'm talking America, Europe, Canada, Australia. There's a whole lot of completely nonsensical, insane, self-destructive things happening. A society that these societies, these modern Western societies, are basically self-destructive. They couldn't last. There's no way things have been like this for a long time, because if they were, it all would have collapsed in on itself. I mean, just economically, we've got a couple of people at the top screwing over their entire nation so they can make a bigger profit. They already got more money than they can ever spend, and these people are also stupid. He's getting all upset at someone for driving slow, I guess. I don't know. But, so, here's the thing. When you've got, when your society, when the people at the top are doing everything they can to make their lives better and easier while screwing over everyone else, it ain't gonna last. That's a weak society, built on weakness, built on greed, built on stupidity. The leadership, for them to even think that way, are weak. They're stupid. You can't get to a position of power under natural circumstances. They couldn't gain that kind of power if they were like that. And if you even look at our society, the greed, stupidity, and screwing people over, lying, cheating, and stealing, hold on, this bus is over here just making a scene. That's, these are traits that in a normal society, come on, bro, get the how long does it take for people to get off and on a bus? You know what I mean? Why does the bus have to sit there for 10 minutes beeping and snorting and fucking releasing gases, whatever the fuck it's doing? Like, the fuck? It's a perfect example. Everything's just so fucking stupid and sloppy. And, I mean, so under natural, normal circumstances, weak, greedy, stupid, dishonest people could never gain power. They ain't got it in them. You need a messed up set of circumstances to get them, So in our society, people are rewarded for ripping each other off. If you really want to do good at sales, you got to basically lie and mislead and betray people's trust. And products are designed to fail. Cars are designed to be difficult to work on. These newer cars have so much computer shit going on. It's the slightest little, what should be an easy fix, is going to end up costing a lot, because everything is overcomplicated and stupid. I mean, smart people in a smart society, every automobile would be designed almost like Lego. Everything would be so easy to fix and change out. Everything would be interchangeable. It's all so stupid that And the reason it's stupid is because it's not designed to benefit anyone except a small group of stupid people at the top. So, another example. Now, you just look at the modern automobile and look at the first automobiles that ever existed. They're not that different. The only difference is the way they look. The basic, I mean, nowadays with all the computers and all the bullshit, they're overcomplicating it and over engineering it, and they're actually probably, you know, the cars now, if anything, they're like worse because they're harder to fix, they're more complicated. It's, you got to be a real fucking moron to be honestly. I mean, to think that's like a good idea. But anyways, that's beside the point. So the automobile, for the most part, you put the gas in, the engine, it's basically the same thing as the first automobiles that ever existed. Now, look at your phone. Look at the phones from back in the day. It looks absolutely nothing like the phones that we're using now. I really hope the wind is not interfering. It's been really windy in Florida lately, I gotta say. But so, you know, the phone, the modern day phone, doesn't even look, it looks like a completely different thing than the old school phones with the rotary dials. I've actually used one of those. My grandmother used to have one when I was a little kid. And that's a telephone. Now the phone that we have, if you showed this phone to a person in the 1970s or 60s when they had those phones, they wouldn't recognize this as a phone, what we have. They wouldn't know what that was. Now, from what, the modern automobile has been around since what, the 1920s or something. If you showed someone in the 1920s a modern automobile, they would understand, oh, that's an automobile. It certainly looks different, but that's a car. It's got the steering wheel. Everything's the same. So it's, when you really think about it, it's like, why did the technology of phones advance so far, so fast, to the point where the phone doesn't even look like a phone, while the automobile basically stayed the same? I'll tell you why. My theory is because it's about controlling the you know, the fuel. I believe that you could make cars run on water. You could make them run on solar. You can, you know, they haven't changed that technology because they control it all. And people think, oh, electric cars, this and that. They control that too. It doesn't matter. They make it, it's the same like Coke and Pepsi. Like, oh, I'm going to change the world by getting, no, you're not. It's the same people in control of every, you know. You really think they would let Elon Musk just pop up out of the ground and take away all their profits that they've been making since the 1920s? No, it's all a big show, I believe. They control the cobalt mining and the lithium and all that. But they make it seem like, oh, you know, we're fighting against the oil company. Dude, it's the same people. The same people controlling the gas. They control anyway. So so like, well, why did they advance the technology with the phone so much? I'll tell you why. Because it works to their advantage. Because now, with the phones, they can literally spy on everyone. We're all being spied on. You want your data sold? Your data's fucking, they've got it all anyway. China, they've all got it all. It's all bullshit. The only reason this technology exists for these phones is so they can get all your data. You think, I mean, it's, if you had any idea that what's really going on, the only reason they gave us this technology with the phones is because it works to their advantage. Because they can watch you like a hawk whenever they want. They can it's like a homing device. So it works out for the people who really are in control because they're keeping tabs on everyone. That's what I think. They outwardly, these incompetent morons aren't keeping tab. It's all a big show. These incompetent morons that it seem like they're in control are a bunch of puppets on the end of strings, intentionally, the people in control know they're incompetent morons. They know that. That's why that's why they've brought them up so high, because these incompetent morons are easy to control, because they can't do anything without, you know, they need their owners to feed them, basically. It's like a domestic poodle, you know. Throw that motherfucker out in the African savannah, that thing ain't gonna last too long. You know what I mean? So these are the people that they raise up to the top because they can control them. All these celebrities, they all know that if they say the wrong thing or you know, piss the wrong people off, that everything is going to be taken from them. Look at Russell Brand. They you know, I'm not saying he's guilty or innocent. What I am saying is any celebrity could be facing the same exact situation if they pissed off the wrong people and said the wrong things. So, you know, someone like me, they can't control me. I've been to the bottom. I'm not scared of it. They can take everything from me. I'm still, what matters to me is I'm loyal to God, and God is loyal to me. So I ain't worried about what they can take everything from me. I'll be back out on the street with God on my side, building back up. Whatever, die. It doesn't matter. I understand life is temporary. I understand material possessions are temporary. I understand none of this shit matters. What matters is that I try to be the best version of myself, whether I'm fucking homeless or in a mansion. Doesn't make a shit of a difference, really, in the big scheme of things. What matters is, you know, standing before God and saying I did the best I could to be my genuine self, and, you know, to make the world a better place. You know what I mean? So this material shit, all this material shit, they feed you this illusion that, oh, you got to be rich and famous. You want to get girls, and, you know, it cracks me up that Andrew Tate thinks he's like against the Matrix, and dude, if they didn't want him to be out there spreading that message, he would not be out there spreading that message. It's not like they can't stop him. They could stop him in a million different ways and make it seem like, you know, make it seem like whatever they want it to seem like. It doesn't, you know. It's all a big show. They want people to worship him and look up to him and be, you know, loyal to money and greed, and you know. And I don't even have nothing against Andrew Tate. I agree with a lot of his message. It's you know, I'm not trying to like pick on him personally, but it cracks me up that he thinks he's against the Matrix when really he's a big part of it. But so he may not know it. He may think he's against them, but he underestimates them and overestimates himself. That's my opinion. He's a fucking flea to them. They could flick him, and they could have him in a dress. I'll put it to you that way. If they really wanted to, he'd be out here in public dressed as a woman and pushing that narrative. If they wanted. They could get him, like they could make most people do just about anything, and so, maybe not, who knows, but you know, do I think they could get me to do that? No, I don't think that, because I'm not afraid to go fucking be out on the street with nothing. That doesn't scare me. I would rather be out on the street with nothing and having in my, you know, just to tell them to go fuck themselves, and you don't scare me. And if you really want to see power, lock me and you in a room with a knife on the ground. Let's see who walks out. I'll show you what power is. You know what I mean? And so they don't scare me. You know what I mean? I know what real power is. Power does not come from them. It doesn't come from money. It comes from spiritual means. Anyways, so now, hopefully this video is making sense. I feel like I'm all over the place. But so now, I ran into a very interesting YouTube channel recently, and the dude's name is John Levi, Jonlevi. And so he proposes a lot of interesting theories about how when you look closely at a lot of things in history, it really doesn't make any fucking sense at all when you look closely. And so he doesn't, I haven't seen any of his videos where he lays out the exact theory of his, but he's just pointing out a lot of strange things that are overlooked. Now, for instance, I watched a video from him about Mount Rushmore. Mount Rushmore is something... How are we doing on time? All right, we got time. Mount Rushmore is something that I never really paid much attention to. It's a bunch of faces carved into a mountain in the middle of nowhere. Okay, cool. Interesting. It doesn't interest me. It didn't interest me until I seen the John Levi video about it, where he's showing some very weird... So first of all, this, I think it was the Sioux, the Indians, the Native Americans, they've got us so brainwashed and gaslit where we don't call ourselves natives to the countries where... I'm a Native American. I was born an American. I'm a native New Yorker. That's where I'm from. Don't tell me I'm not a native to America. This is the country I was born in. I don't give a shit what your third grade teacher told you. Anyways, it's just a part of the gaslighting and brainwashing and social engineering to take away your confidence, your self-esteem, to get you into a state of mind where you're going to sell your life for a little bit of money and die with nothing anyway. So I'm watching this thing about Mount Rushmore. Apparently, that mountain is a very sacred site to the Sioux Indians, and they called it the Six Grandfathers. And now, when they show you pictures of Mount Rushmore, I hope the wind ain't interfering. When they show you pictures of Mount Rushmore before the faces were carved into it, it looks like just this blank rock. And so why did they call it the Six Grandfathers? But then John Levi showed a picture of Mount Rushmore where to the left of George Washington, there's another face carved into that mountain with a long beard. And it looks nothing like the other faces in the mountain. And I'm like, what the heck? I never knew there was a fifth face in Mount Rushmore. What happened to it? So the story is that apparently that face was supposed to be someone else, but they messed up on it and just blew it off the mountain with dynamite or whatever. Now, I don't really believe that, and so John Levi was saying that it's possible that there used to be six faces carved into this mountain, and we just made up some characters: George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, Thomas Jefferson. These are, for all we know, it's all made up, is the point. Now, and it kind of, you got to question it. What's with that other face? And why does it have that long beard? And what's his story? And who was he supposed to be? And so then John Levi shows pictures of them apparently working on Mount Rushmore. And so these faces are like 60, 80 feet tall, carved into the side of a mountain. And when I look at the picture of the work site that he showed, there's literally two ladders, a scaffold, and some dude dangling from a string. And he doesn't even have any tools. He's just hanging from a string and like touching the face. And it's like, that's the picture of the workers working on Mount Rushmore. It's a couple of ladders, a scaffold, and a guy dangling from a string with no tools. And so when you look closely at it, it's like, well, that doesn't make any fucking sense. And so one of my ways to detect lies is if someone's telling me something and it doesn't make sense, I tend to lean towards not believing it. You know what I mean? So that's Mount Rushmore. He was pointing out a lot of other things where apparently Mount Rushmore was made by, they blew a bunch of rock off it with dynamite and then, chiseled it with chisels. It's like, how many skilled craftsmen could do that? And did we just scour the globe and find them all? And you know what I mean? That's a fucking How, like, why don't we do it anymore? Why is that the only mountain we've carved? If this is something that they could pull off 100 years ago, why can't we pull it off now? And so it's just weird. And so another thing he was showing was this, it looks like there's parts that have been covered with some sort of concrete or something. It doesn't look like it was blown apart with dynamite. It looks like it was poured concrete over it and then shaped. And so anyways, look up John Levi's video about Mount Rushmore if you want to know about it. And then another thing, apparently they were going to carve a hall of records into Mount Rushmore. So in one part, there's this deep hall carved into the mountain, which apparently they just gave up on it. They said, oh, this is too much work. We're not doing it no more. And so the hall is just dug into the mountain and then stops abruptly. For all we know, there is a hall of records back there that they covered in with concrete and shit. You know what I mean? So that's one example of, I believe they're not telling us something. Another example is, why is it that none of us know anything past our grandparents and great-grandparents? We don't know anything about our ancestors, really. Your ancestors stretch back thousands of years. You're talking millions of people. Why didn't any of us keep any type of records? And, you know, it's almost like something happened 100 years ago that made us all, that, you know, they just, no one knows after that because there was some sort of global reset. You know what I mean? Now, this is just a theory. I'm not saying that this is accurate or not, but it's interesting to think about, and it makes sense when you look closely at a lot of things. Like I'm saying, none of us know anything about our ancestors. And on top of that, your ancestors stretch back thousands and thousands of years. And you're telling me that none of my ancestors, stretching back to 10,000 BC, none of them managed to accumulate any wealth. None of them. You're telling me that all my thousands of ancestors, none of them were able to acquire a piece of land somewhere or build a castle or a house. None of them were able to pull that off. Is that what you expect me to believe? Like, so we all, like, in the modern world, we're basically all starting at zero. None of our ancestors were able to accumulate anything to pass down. I guess some of you guys maybe, but for the most part, most people, they're renting an apartment. Forget about having some piece of land or, you know, home passed down. Not even a house. Realistically, you would think that your ancestors would have came together and gotten a big piece of land and built like a big castle. This way, all their descendants would at least have somewhere to live and somewhere to, you know, just some sort of head start. But as it stands, we're all just starting with nothing, and oh, the world's already owned by everyone. Well, how come my ancestors never managed to get a piece of it, even a small piece? Like, you know, it just doesn't make sense. It does not make sense at all. Now, if you watch other videos from John Levi, he talks a lot about these world fairs that they used to have at in the 1900s, where I never knew anything about these things, but apparently they would build these big, elaborate, beautiful buildings, and I'm talking like beautiful architecture, way nicer than anything we do now, like old school New York architecture. If you ever walk around New York and pay attention, you'll see like gargoyles on the buildings and shit, and all this detail and exquisite masonry. A lot of beautiful architecture around New York City. Now, that's the only place where I've ever really noticed how beautiful the architecture is and stuff. But it's like John Levi is saying, like, why would they build these big, beautiful, elaborate buildings and structures, and then apparently they would destroy them all like a couple weeks later. It's like these were the World Fairs, and John Levi's saying maybe those structures were already there, and some sort of dumber, parasitic people came in and somehow won some sort of battle against them and just took everything over. Because if you look at the modern architecture, we basically just build boxes. That's it. It's like, if you look at the architecture from the late 1800s, this is what, like the Wild West, supposedly, where you look at the Wild West towns, they're building square wood boxes and selling, you know, goods out of it. But meanwhile, in places like Salt Lake City and New York City, there's these big, elaborate, amazing buildings. Like, what you're telling me that, you know, we were building these beautiful, extravagant, detailed buildings in some places, while at the same time building little wooden pieces of shit in others. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. You know what I mean? And so I understand that some of these towns were supposedly founded right around that time, Salt Lake City being one of them. But why did it have these big, elaborate, amazing buildings 10 years later when, you know, it just doesn't make sense? You know what I mean? So, how long is, man, we're already 34 minutes in. There was other stuff I wanted to say, but I can't think of it now. So anyways, maybe I should just end this video. Now, another thing I want to say, if you want to know what's really going on out here, now I don't have all the details about all these things that I'm talking about in this video, but I have a whole lot of details about the people who control the world, and I put that stuff on Patreon. So if you're interested, go on there. And if you're not interested in that, stick with my YouTube. I don't care. It really. Of course, I want to have a lot of people on Patreon and YouTube, but what I don't want is everyone on my Patreon, because that information is not for everyone. But if that resonates with you, maybe it is for you. Another big, disgusting, ugly vehicle, loud, spitting out noxious gases. I'm all for gas vehicles, don't get me wrong, but this video's got to end at some point, so I'm gonna end it now. But yeah, appreciate y'all. Thanks for the subs, thanks for the likes, thanks for the tips, thanks for the channel members, and thanks for the Patreons especially. And if you want a response to your comment, try to get it in the first 30 comments. And I get this, I guess, yeah, that's about it. I'll see you on the next one. Everybody have a good one.